Pay close attention. The news you are about to see is fulfilling Bible prophecy.
Welcome to another edition of YPN News, bringing you the news that relates to Bible prophecy and foretold by Yeshua Hawkins. Well, in the news this week, Iran and the U.S. inch closer to war. Iran is claiming that they shot down a U.S. drone, that causing President Trump to fire back by imposing sanctions on Iran and actually some of the Iranian leaders, namely the Supreme Leader, the Ayatollah Khomeini. Also, we have the news about leaders that are making comments that if this war with Iran and the U.S. breaks out in the region, it would be disastrous. So these stories and many more. But first, it has been reported that Israel has conducted another round of strikes into Syria. This time, the target was a Syrian intelligence gathering base, which is believed to be operated by Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard, as well as Hezbollah. Now, the attack took place around 2 a.m. with several missiles being fired at Tel al-Hara, a city just 15 kilometers east of Syria's border with Israel.
There was confirmation from Sana, the official Syrian news agency, that material damage was sustained. They also reported the Syrian missile defense took down some of the incoming missiles, but their military's radar was exposed to jamming for a time as well. While the details of the Israeli bombardment will remain classified, the goal of the actions is to stop the Islamic Republic's military entrenchment along Israel's northern border.
The alleged attack came just a day after extensive evidence indicated a large presence of Iranian military and their allies in the region that Jerusalem had previously declared as off limits. Now, there has also been a war of words between Iran's foreign minister, Javad Zarif, and Israel's President Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, Netanyahu aired a recorded statement that said Mr. Zarif was lying about his country's intentions as it made plans very openly to destroy Israel.
Mr. Netanyahu vowed that Jerusalem will stop Tehran's goal to develop nuclear weapons that threatens Israel's existence and endangers the entire world. Israel has been training for wars as they just recently concluded 2 separate military exercises with the declared intention of preparing for an all-out multi-front war. It was designed to simulate an all-out war with multiple theaters of operation as well as high-tech warfare more advanced than what is usually dealt with in the region.
The United States is also escalating tensions with Iran as new sanctions this week directly target Iran's top officials. Now, President Trump and his team are now offering talks with Iran for a new nuclear deal. However, Iran made it clear that they will remain bitterly defiant.
Iranian President Hassan Rouhani, speaking at a medical conference, fired insults at President Trump, saying, "What America is doing today is a sign of its definite failure. There is an unusual frustration in the administration and in the White House. Total confusion. The White House is afflicted by mental retardation and does not know what to do," he said.
Rouhani's comments were regarding the new round of sanctions, the economic sanctions directly targeting Iran's supreme leader, the Ayatollah al-Khomeini, despite President Trump saying he wants diplomatic talks with Iran so they can reach a nuclear deal.
Well, Trump's national security advisor, John Bolton, is also hoping for talks to resume. While in Israel, he said the president has held the door open to real negotiations to completely and verifiably eliminate Iran's nuclear weapons program, its pursuit of ballistic missile delivery systems, its support for international terrorism, and its other malign behavior worldwide. All that Iran needs to do, he said, is to walk through that open door.
Well, even with the warm invitation of talks, Iran's response was a flat no, with Iranian officials saying there is now, quote, a permanent closure of diplomacy with the desperate government of America.
Well, President Trump is declaring he's got the power to attack Iran without any congressional approval. Trump said, quote, "I do like keeping," referring to Congress, "them abreast, but I don't have to do it legally," end quote. All options, including the military one, remain on the table, but with economic sanctions and the offers to talk, analysts are saying that the president has options in search of a strategy.
Well, President Trump has placed these new sanctions in part as a response to Iran's downing of a U.S. drone. Now, the sanctions are directly aimed at Iran's supreme leader, the Ayatollah al-Khamenei, with the goal to squeeze Iran's economy further so they drop their nuclear program.
President Trump has said, never can Iran have a nuclear weapon. And this latest pressure on the supreme leader and other top officials is an attempt to block them from accessing key financial resources and support.
Well, 8 Iranian military commanders have also been targeted for their involvement in shooting down the U.S. drone. Iran's economy has been choked by U.S. sanctions on its oil industry and other targets, but some believe these new sanctions may only have a minimal impact on top Iranian officials because they likely do not keep significant assets in international banks.
President Trump has said America is a place of peace, a peace-loving nation, as he urged the Iranian regime to come to the negotiating table. President Trump stated, "I think they should do that rather than going on the very destructive path, destructive for everyone." Well, Iran's Foreign Minister Javad Zarif is also among those receiving U.S. sanctions and recently tweeted, "Trump administration officials are not concerned with U.S. interest. They despise diplomacy and thirst for war."
Well, speaking of Iran's Foreign Minister Javad Zarif, he is claiming that the U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton is planning a war with Iran. Now, Larry McGee has the latest. Larry, has the Foreign Minister said why he believes that war is being plotted against the Islamic Republic?
Before coming into office, many people anticipated that President Security Advisor John Bolton would go after Iran with even more zeal than any of his predecessors. Since entering office, Advisor Bolton seems not to have disappointed them, and in fact, Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif is accusing the U.S. diplomat of planning to incite a war against Iran. On Twitter, the social media platform that has become an acceptable outlet for venting frustrations and making announcements, the Iranian Foreign Minister pointed to a memo concocted by Advisor Bolton in 2017 to support his argument. The memo is said to contain details on how to dismantle the Iranian nuclear deal, and in regard to that, the Persian diplomat is also pointing out that contrary to popular belief, Iran never left the negotiating table. Mr. Zarif says it was the infamous B team that drug the U.S. out of the negotiations, composed of Benjamin Netanyahu, Advisor Bolton, bin Salman of Saudi Arabia, and bin Zayed of the UAE. Foreign Minister Zarif says it is these four which are pressuring President Trump into war. It seems Iran itself is also being pressured by provocation from these same elements, and they, however, have apparently set their minds to fight back and not fold, even if it means their life. In evidence of this, Tehran recently shot down a U.S. drone, and American analysts are calling it a direct attack. The drone is said to have been one of America's most expensive and sophisticated. Iran says the drone was operating in Persian airspace, but America contends that it was flying over the vital oil shipping waterway of the Strait of Hormuz, which it considers to be international waters. Tehran says its borders are its red line, and any enemy which violates them will not return and will be destroyed. The nation is reported to have said that it does not intend to engage in war with another nation, but they are ready for war if it comes to them. Retired Colonel Steve Ganyard, in offering commentary on the situation, says Iran and America are getting very close to war, and he feels that the United States is going to have to respond in some way. President Putin recently held one of his increasingly popular question and response sessions with the public. This one reportedly lasted 4 hours and addressed a number of important issues. One question posed inquired about the state of Russian-U.S. relations. To this, President Putin replies that while there is speculation about ties between Moscow and certain people in Washington, which was an obvious allusion to the rumored connection between himself and President Trump, the Russian leader says that's all fake. He stated that once the partners in the U.S. are ready, however, that Moscow will respond in kind. The Russian leader also remarked that sanctions imposed on his country by the U.S. were a mistake that he believes everyone will realize in due time. One of the biggest questions in the entire exchange was concerning the current uptick in aggression between Washington and Tehran. On that matter, the Russian head was blunt and said that he would like to say straight away that a war between the two would be a disaster for the region. He stated, moreover, that the outcome would be an outburst of violence with ramifications that are hard to calculate, and that ultimately those initiating such violence could face consequences as well. At the Valdai International Club, the initiative between Iran and Russia is continuing. At their most recent meeting, as one might expect, the primary topic for discussion was increasing tension between America and Iran. Iranian experts say the attempts being exerted by some to pressure Iran could have tragic consequences for the world community. They say this all represents the possibility for big war and risk due to America's withdrawal from the nuclear treaty, and that is why they believe Russia and various nations throughout the Middle East have an interest in mediating the conflict. The experts say the issue is that Iran does not succumb to American bullying, but Iran's deputy foreign minister says it's not just about Iran, but also Russia and China. The deputy minister says there is a commonality of concern and interest between the three, and that America is seeking to undermine their collective influence in the international arena. The Persian diplomat says that the U.S. seeks every way to advance their bullying hegemony in the world. Iran's belief expressed at the recent conference, however, is that it is capable of withstanding a war with the U.S. Iran believes that America still does not know the Persian people very well and does not take into account the fact that Iran's threshold for losses and self-sacrifice is much higher than its own. For YPN News, I'm Larry McGee. Katan Jeff, back to you.
Well, there again, we see kind of some words of reason with President Vladimir Putin taking into consideration the end result of nuclear war between several countries and the results of not just the leaders of that country, but the citizens as well.
Right, disasters for the entire region.
That's right. Well, many people are wondering, as tensions build between the United States and Iran, what would occur if the United States actually fired a missile at Iran? I'll take a look at this next video to get this gentleman's take on that very issue.
Well, let me just tell you that if they fire on the Islamic Republic of Iran, they will be opening the gates of hell. The gates of hell. The gates of hell. This is not Iraq in 2003. Iran is not a broken-backed country with an unpopular leader, with no friends and allies in the region or the world. Iran is a vibrant, powerful country of nearly 80 million people, most of them young people, most of them united at least in their rejection of foreign interference in their country, of a foreign attack upon their country. And Iran is militarily strong in the way that Iraq was militarily weak. The Iranians can fight back, and they will fight back. The drone that they brought down, they say in their territorial waters, gives an indication of the ability and power of their military. They have millions of men and women, for that matter, either under arms or ready to be under arms. For many of those, it would be a pleasure to fight the United States and its allies in the region. Whichever Persian Gulf country allows its land to be used for the launching of an American attack on Iran will itself immediately be in flames, probably within the hour. will itself immediately be in flames, probably within the hour. Will itself immediately be in flames, probably within the hour. Within the hour. Within the hour. Within the hour. The Straits of Hormuz, through which 35% of the world's oil flow, not American oil, by the way, they buy almost none of it, but it will bring the economy of many places, including yours, grinding to a halt within days or weeks. 35% of all the world's oil will be passing through or not passing through a narrow strait that the Iranians can and will easily block.
Don, if that is reflecting Iran's take on that situation, you can see they're not going to take it lightly. The U.S. has increased tensions there, and if U.S. would start an attack.
That's right.
Well, according to a new report from the Department of Justice, using nuclear weapons could create conditions for decisive results and the restoration of strategic stability. Now, specifically, they use the use of a nuclear weapon will fundamentally change the scope of a battle and create conditions that affect how commanders will prevail in conflict. Now, the 60-page document came out in early June, only to be classified a week later. Now, many are wondering why the document was classified in the first place, as the fundamental doctrine with the use of nuclear weapons by the U.S. is laid out for the entire world to see.
That's right. Now, President Trump recently said in a press conference, between Russia, China, and us, we're making billions of dollars in weapons, including nuclear weapons, and it's ridiculous. Now, the president also recently called on China and Russia to put to rest the so-called nuclear arms race. Several months later, Trump accused Russia of developing missiles prohibited by the 1987 INF Treaty. Although Moscow denies those accusations, the United States withdrew from the INF Treaty February 2nd.
Well, in 2018, the Pentagon's Nuclear Posture Review accused Russia of producing more non-strategic and INF-banned weapons. Now, the American Federation of Scientists, despite the U.S.'s inflated claims against Russia, pointed out something interesting, that the Nuclear Posture Review contradicts itself. Their own statistics indicate that Russia, at 3,000 to 5,000 non-strategic nuclear weapons in 2009, and 2,000 to 4,000 in 2011, and then 2,000 or less in 2018. Exaggerating the threat on Russia only justifies spending more money on weapons that can annihilate humanity.
Interesting. And with the risk of nuclear wars at its highest since World War II, there's no time for war games. Well, Colin Cavill, a political science associate professor, said that it's a double standard to present Trump as someone who is reluctant to go to war. Cavill believes the document was a message utilizing fear to boost his foreign policy, which is aggressive in South America, the Middle East, and Asia.
Well, the U.S.'s President Donald Trump has stated that he is ready for Iran and the direct conflict there, and is willing to obliterate parts of the Islamic Republic if anything else American is attacked. Now, these remarks from both sides have renewed the possibility of war, and those tensions are very high at the moment. Now, on Twitter, the president said any attack by Iran on anything American will be met with great and overwhelming force. In some areas, overwhelming will mean obliteration.
Well, later in the week, the president said that Iran has the opportunity to be a great economic nation if it abandons its nuclear weapons. However, according to Trump, the Iranian leadership needs to change first.
Well, China's foreign minister has said that sanctions and pressure on Iran by the U.S. has increased tensions and has had the opposite effect. Now, what the Persian Gulf needs is dialogue and negotiations instead of tensions and containment. Now, the foreign minister called on all parties to remain calm and restrained. Now, the U.S. has increased tensions in the region by blaming Iran for the recent tanker attacks in the Sea of Oman.
Well, after 2 years of preparations, the Trump administration is bringing forth their plans to bring the Palestinians and Israelis to the negotiation table. Skeptics are voicing concern, saying that the Americans are using money to bribe the Palestinians. The plan includes the gathering of efforts to invest $50 billion into the Palestinians, money that is expected to primarily come from other Arab nations, mostly in the Gulf region.
Well, after the meeting in Bahrain, the next step will be to fashion a political settlement that would translate financial commitments into reality on the ground. Now, Al Jazeera spoke with Jared Kushner regarding the meeting in Bahrain and the criticism that the plan received. Pay attention to his response in this next video.
I think that, people mockingly call this the deal of the century. I think the plan that we've laid out is actually the opportunity of the century. You talk about the Palestinians like they're a homogeneous body. What we have is we have a lot of Palestinians since we put this out who are calling us saying, this is phenomenal. What do we have to do to get this? We want this. This is exactly what we need. Thank you for taking the time to put together such an in-depth plan. Thank you for getting the world interested in seeing that the way that they've been doing it to date has not worked, and for highlighting a way forward. So from our point of view, we think that this is a step forward because we want people to discuss new ideas, look at this problem differently. And again, people who come with criticism, it's very easy to say what you're against. It's much harder to say what you're for. And what we've done is we've done the hard work. We've studied this problem. We've studied all the global economies that have been successful over the last 75 years. We've studied economies where it's failed. We've drawn from the best ideas. We customized this plan for what will work here. We've built it off a lot of the great work that's been done in the past. And what we've done is we've put forward a very credible, substantive, detailed plan for how to move forward. And then what we'll do is we'll refine it. Again, nobody's got a monopoly on good ideas. We'll refine this, we'll get buy-in, and then we'll go and we'll try to address the political solutions. But what I do know is that a lot of the people who are criticizing are not people who have been constructive. These are people who have been involved in this for a very, very long time. And these are people who have not found solutions and who have not helped to make the Palestinians people's lives better.
Well, Mr. Kushner definitely, you can tell, has faith in his plan, and the feedback that he's getting from people in the Arab nations kind of solidifies that ideology that this is something that could possibly work. Of course, time will tell because we still have Mahmoud Abbas and several others who are refusing to meet with the U.S. And do any negotiating with them because they felt that they weren't included in anything in regards to the formation of this quote-unquote deal of the century.
And even with the criticism that Jared Kushner mentioned he was getting regarding the plan, seems like it didn't faze him at all, and that he's continuing to just look, and say, hey, we've looked at all that, and we've done some extensive research, and we feel we have the best plan, and we're moving forward. So it does sound like he's not going to allow any of that criticism to slow him down.
That's right, very stoic. Well, if you would like to learn a little bit more about the prophesied 7-year peace plan that Yisrael Hawkins and the House of Yahweh has brought out, that showing these things actually written in the book of Daniel, contact the House of Yahweh, and of course you can look into the Mark of the Beast, Volume 1 and Volume 2 book, Birth of the Nuclear Baby, The Explosion of Sin, and several other books that go into great detail about these last days and the wars that will be building up to a point of all-out nuclear burning that will take place in 1 hour. When you contact the House of Yahweh, don't forget to also request your free copy of the Prophetic Word magazine and the monthly newsletter. Here's how.
Well, to contact the House of Yahweh, you can write them at the House of Yahweh, P.O. Box 2498, Abilene, Texas 79604. You can call them at 1-800-613-9494. Visit them on any of their websites, Yahweh.com, YisraelHawkins.com, or Yahweh'sBranch.com. You can also visit our website by going to YPNnews.com. If you would like to email the House of Yahweh, you can do so by emailing info@Yahweh.com. If there are any international calls, you can call the number that's on your screen now. And once again, don't forget to check out 2 absolutely free Bible study helps on the market. The Yisrael Says program by going to YisraelSays.com, and the Ask Yisrael program by going to AskYisrael.com.
Well, don't go anywhere. Up next, Yisrael Hawkins. From all of us here at YPN News, I'm Katan Alexander.
And I'm Jeffrey Heimerman.
Thank you for watching.